listening to how Stuart Broad went on to become an incredible bowler in Test cricket. He's taken 500 wickets, and we may never see another seamer ever do this again. So how did the son of a batsman who went for 6 sixes and an over, struggled against the Netherlands, then go on to be one of the greatest bowlers in Test cricket? So today we'll talk to his mate and pub co-owner, Harry Gurney, his main wicketkeeper, Matt Pryor, plus Darren Gough will have his say. And of course, I've kept Steve Harmison with me, another tall, fast bowler to take us through just what makes Stuart Broad so special. You're listening to TalkSport 2.
He doesn't protect what he has, but his figures and whatever, he's really not fussed. He is a team player and he'll do the job that is necessary for the team.
Broad goes in once again, two slips and a gully.
It's this time, and Stuart Broad sets off on a lap of honour on his own.
Nicked, gone this time. Stuart Broad has picked up the wicket of Milan.
He wants to win games of cricket for England. That's the thing that drives him. He loves playing Test cricket. He loves representing England, but more than that, he loves winning.
Stuart Broad has just taken his 500th Test wicket and made the breakthrough England wanted this morning. Great celebrations considering there's no crowd in the ground, but Broad reaches 500.
Amazing achievement. You'd probably got there a year ago if I could catch a slip.
It's been a privilege to stand at mid-off and watch all your success, the hat-tricks, the fifers and the match-winning spells.
Not only are you going to go down as one of the greatest to ever put the England shirt on, you're also going to go down as one of the greatest to ever play the game.
A phenomenal achievement, mate. Something which you should be very, very proud of.
It was special to get the 500. You know, it's great to have a family member in the stadium.
You're listening to how Stuart Broad joined the all-time bowling elite, a TalkSport 2 special. I am with Steve Harmison. I'm Jared Kimber. And I want to go back to the start with Stuart Broad a little bit, because obviously we can remember, well, not all the 500 wickets, unless Glenn McGrath's probably the only player who can remember all of his 500 wickets. But he started as an all-rounder, really, even a batsman when he was a young player. He went off to play club cricket in Australia, in my hometown of Melbourne, and apparently got sledged so much he started bowling quick because he was sick and tired of being abused by everyone. He then obviously went to the World T20. He was seen as a white ball bowler, got hit for 6 sixes by Yuvraj Singh, and in early 2009 he had to defend fairly hard to defend total against the Netherlands in the last over and fumbled a run out, and Netherlands beat England, which was a huge game. But the reason I'm leading up all to that is at the end of 2009, at a point where he was still talked about really as an all-rounder, played in the 09 Ashes at the Oval, everything to play for, and suddenly Broad came out and was incredible. And Harmy, if I'm not mistaken, you were there.
I was there, yeah, I was there in his debut. I'm looking at the scorecard right in front of me. The 9th of December 2007 in Colombo. Michael Vaughan, captain. You know, looking at the side, it's a fairly strong England side and a baby-faced Stuart Broad. But I remember just before that, I remember being in a team meeting. Andrew Strauss was captain against Pakistan in a one-day side, and Duncan Fletcher used to have these team meetings, which was down the road of selection. It was a management meeting with senior players beforehand, just talking about things not generally towards team point of view, but Stuart Broad's name did come up, and I remember saying, you know, we've got to pick him in this game at Bristol. And when we worked out who he needs to play in front of, I remember looking and thinking, it's me. You have to leave me out. I wasn't interested in playing one-day cricket. I hadn't performed that well, and I worked out very quickly, if this kid needs to play, he needs to play instead of me, because you know he's ready to start playing international cricket. England picked him in New Zealand, and it was the end of Harmison and Hoggard, and it was the right thing, because the cycle of fast bowlers that had come through England in the last sort of 15-20 years was Caddick and Gough mainly opening the bowling for England. Harmison and Hoggard, who got through that, 2005 and beyond, and then it was Broad and Anderson. And the difference between all of them is the dedication and their ability to put disappointment to one side and be single-minded and driven to get better as individuals, not team. I know Matt Pryor's saying their team, but individuals to get themselves better, because they knew they could get better. It would benefit the team. Jimmy Anderson, people try to change his bowling action. He's been around a long time, and he had a rough start. Stuart Broad, a little bit similar, but their ability to get better and want to move with the times and get better through that, and dedication to perform, is why the two of them are going to be England's best ever cricketers.
There's so many different facets to his cricket that I find, very interesting. But one is because he did grow up, as a batsman, and obviously came into international cricket. I think he batted 7 at times. Certainly at times he was thought to be, a proper all-rounder. But to me, he always seemed to almost think more like a bowler who had batted. And he was always sort of thinking batsmen out in a way that I heard Michael Holding talking recently about just bowling seam up the whole time. He's almost like, compared to that, Broad's been a mad scientist. He's always coming up with theories in different ways, and he's always trying to work out what the batsman wants to do in a way that a lot of bowlers don't.
Absolutely, and I think that's his biggest asset. And there's a lot of talk, and Matt alluded to it. Matt Pryor alluded to it in the little piece that we've got, and I'll put that to him when he comes on. Is there was a lot of thinking about Broad and Anderson looking at there, and I'm talking about the two of them here in context, because as much as I want to isolate the two of them and talk about them individually, but they work so well together, and a lot was talked about. They put the ball in an area which batsmen can't hit, i.e. early on they try and ball people out, put the ball wide of off stump. But actually what they're doing, and what the art of fast bowling is to make sure that you are in a position to get the batsman where you want them to be, for then when you go in for the kill. And the biggest thing I would probably say to Jimmy, because obviously I'm a little bit older than Jimmy when Jimmy first came in, Jimmy was the most skillful young bowler that I have ever seen. He could bowl an in-swinger. Ben Stokes is the same. He could bowl an in-swinger, he could bowl an out-swinger, he could bowl a Yorker, he could bowl a slower ball, he could bowl a bouncer. The problem that I had was they wanted to bowl it all in one over. Now, the reason why Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson are what they are now is they've got an ability to work out what that batsman is going to want and what that batsman is not going to want when he comes out to the middle. And that's what they are so good at. And when you mentioned there about Stuart Broad and his batting, he thought like a batsman, so he could put that into his bowling. And until Varun Aaron's hit him in the face, he was not a genuine all-rounder in the context of Ben Stokes and Andrew Flintoff and people like that. But he was, why England was so successful, had people, like we talked about in the cricket collective, not more than 45 minutes ago, that if England can get off to a good start and absorb the ball at the top of the order, you had Matt Pryor coming in at 7, you had Graham Swan coming in at 8, and Stuart Broad coming in at 9. One of them could get 100 in Pryor, and two of them quite comfortably in Swan and Broad had the ability to get 50 off less than a run of ball. Now, if you've got that coming at 7, 8 and 9 against tired bowlers, that wins a test match every time. And that, for me, fundamentally was why England was so strong in that sort of 2010 period onwards.
So Stuart Broad has sealed his place as one of cricket's, most executive clubs, picking up his 500th Test wicket. He becomes just the 7th bowler to reach that milestone and just the 4th fast bowler to get there. The former England bowler Darren Gough told TalkSport earlier that his attitude has been the most impressive throughout his career.
He goes away whenever he realises something's not quite right and he's under pressure to keep his place. He goes away and works on his game. Whether it be changing his run-up 2 years ago to now making that left side stronger, and which is helping him get a better seam position, go down the pitch. He moved the ball both ways in these 2 Test matches. I mean, he looked like taking a wicket all the time. And I think he's at 10 for 67. 10 for 67 in this game. 2 years ago, his average was just over 30, Stuart Broad.
Blimey. He's
now averaging 28 with a ball. That's how much he's come down. With the wickets he's got, you consider that takes some doing. He's averaged around 21.5 the last year and a half in Test cricket. Similar to James Anderson. Both of them have got their averages down from over 30, which was steady, right? Steady. Now to where it should be, 27, 28. So, well done to both of them. But Stuart Broad has proven in these 2 Test matches, especially in English conditions, he has got a lot to offer still.
He did get Man of the Series, and in his 13-year-old Test career, how many Man of the Series awards has he won before now?
1.
Correct. India in 2011. How on earth did you know that? That's impressive. You know your cricket, don't you? Talk to me about Ricky Ponting's tweet, because this is really interesting. Ricky Ponting, we thought he was paying tribute to Stuart Broad, and he probably was, but it's intriguing. You explain it for us. Ponting's tweet was this: "Congratulations, Stuart Broad, on 500 Test wickets. Always a tough competitor and a very skillful bowler, especially in English conditions."
English conditions do make him an handful. Anderson, Broad and Woakes. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And when I've just talked about those figure averages, if you look at their averages when they do go abroad, it's not quite as good. They're well into, I mean, Woakes is around 50. Anderson and Broad are more like 33, 34, 35. So it's not quite as good, but they're still performers. Anderson's performed in Australia, performed in South Africa, performed in India, all around the world, right? You don't play that long if you don't perform in certain countries. Broad's done it. I remember him getting wickets and they wouldn't put his name. Remember that in Australia when he got 5-4, and then because he'd slugged them off or something, or he didn't walk. That's it. Remember they put a picture of him, blacked out picture, and they wouldn't put his photo of him on, and he bowled him out. The problem he's had when he's gone to Australia in the past is he keeps getting injured and keeps coming home after 1 or 2 tests, and he's not been quite at his best. That's where that comes from. But in English conditions, those 3 bowlers, I'll say it again, Woakes, Broad and Anderson are excellent. What it does is give me, I know Woakes is not as young as he used to be, he's getting on a little bit now, but he's still got, if we look after him, like Anderson and Broad's being looked after, when one of them goes, possibly Anderson in 12 months, whatever it may be, Woakes can do that job for another couple of years till we find someone else. And then we'll need 2. Just Broad will be gone by then as well. So, but there's so many good bowlers around at the moment. We're in a very, very good position.
Woakes with a 5-foot. I think is Ricky Ponting trying to tell us, just hold on a bit here.
Yeah, you've got to go to Australia.
There are some greats, but
yes, that's what he's trying to say.
He's not quite one of the greats. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what they would say, but he's got 500 Test wickets. It's very hard to argue. Longevity plays a big part in a cricketer's stats, doesn't it? If you play 150 Tests, you're going to get wickets. Longevity. If you play 150 Tests as a batsman and you keep in the side, you're going to get runs. And it shows, but the highest wicket run scorer is Alistair Cook, played 150 odd Tests, might have been more. And Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad have both played over 150 Tests. Longevity, that's just the modern day cricketer now, with the games they're allowed to play. If you compare that to the likes of Bob Willis and myself and Flintoff and those guys at Armisen, played anything between 50 and 80 Tests, you know what I mean? Very difficult. But now these boys, they're well looked after. They can stay fit. They're fit as they should be. They've got trainers with them all the time. They have to reach certain standards with their fitness work. And they've realised you can stay fit for 10 years as an international cricketer. You leave the game a very wealthy man. And it gives them that hunger. They've both got it. It's a huge credit to Anderson and Broad to still be going and still wanting to keep going. 600 wickets approaching for Jimmy. Broad's on his tail now, 501 wickets he's got. That's going to be an interesting battle now, because Anderson's going to be thinking, I've got to keep going here just to make sure he doesn't catch me for another 12 months. So if he stays fit, I reckon Jimmy's got another 12 months at least. In certain conditions, he's still going to be a huge handful. And Broad, if he carries on, his last 2 years, he's been outstanding. England keep dropping him. They dropped him in Sri Lanka. They dropped him again. They dropped him in South Africa. They keep dropping him, but he keeps coming back.
Outside edge and gone. A flick and a flash. And Stuart Broad on a charge.
Always an inside edge. It could be the only thing that saves him, and nothing will save him. Harlington goes first ball. Broad on the hat-trick. Oh, he's got it! Stuart Broad has got his hat-trick. Kumar knows nothing about it. His stumps have been rearranged. Trembridge celebrates. Nottingham is loving every moment of this.
And really, when you look at it, no one more deserving than Stuart Broad. Gets a standing ovation from our own Surrey and Botham.
You're listening to how Stuart Broad joined the all-time bowling elite, a TalkSport 2 special. As you heard there, just one of the many highlights of Stuart Broad's career, the hat-trick, of which maybe not all the decisions were out, but that doesn't matter. He took a few of them. And to celebrate Stuart Broad's career, we've got on his mate, Matty Pryor. Hello, Matty. How are you?
Good evening, boys. How are you?
Matty.
All right, let's start with the important stuff, Matty. You took 53 catches off Stuart Broad. Can you take us through all 53? And also, how many did you drop? Because that's all that Broad is going to remember.
I bet you Broad can remember the ones you dropped.
And one thing very clear, I cannot remember all 53, but because I didn't dare drop any others. He would let you know. I mean, I wonder how many wickets he would actually be on if all the catches are taken. He's got. I remember talking about this. I think it was in the Caribbean, wasn't it?
99, I think it was, wasn't it? 99 dropped catches.
That's right. He was right up there, wasn't he? So, I mean, really, he should be... Okay, well, let's say half of those are half chances, so he should be on 550, really. But, no, amazing day for him.
Matty, if you had DRS, he'd have 750. He'd be way in front of everybody else if you asked Brody, because they were all out. But you know him better than anybody else. He's had kicks and knockbacks, and I sat here a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I knew what the reaction would be. But you know him the best. You're sitting at home, listen to him give his interview at Southampton. Stuart Broad was never going to hope he was going to perform at Manchester, was he? He was always going to perform.
Always. I mean, they're trying to get rid of him, aren't they? So he just won't go away. They've got to drop him first test of the series every time, and England will win because he keeps coming back, taking wickets. Well, man of the series this time, and England get the win. I think it's one of, you know, whether you're a Stuart Broad fan or not, and I struggle to see how you can't be. You know, being one of England's greatest ever cricketers and having now reached that amazing landmark of 500 wickets. I've actually listened to the show and was listening to Goffey talking about longevity. Now, longevity is a skill in itself. You know, whether it's physical and remaining fit, whether it's mental and being able to take the stresses and strains mentally for as long as these guys have to, playing a 13-year-long test career. But the other thing is longevity is remaining selectable. And through a 13-year career, I mean, the game has changed. I mean, the game's changed since we finished, Tommy, immeasurably. And what he's had to do is go away and reinvent himself and come back stronger. You know, how he's worked out this round the wicket to a left-hand batsman, how he, you know, dominated Warner the last Ashes series. That's something he's learned in these later years. I mean, that's not something he had when he was a young bowler. He's learned that in the last, 18 months or so.
But that's a skill. Matt, sorry to cut you off. That's a skill in itself from a bowler point of view.
Absolutely.
But it's the biggest attribute I think he's got in what makes him greatness is that this is not a 23-year-old kid. This is 34-year-old who could easily go, I'm going to sound like Goffey here talking about money, but it's I've got a few quid in my bank. They've dropped me again. I'm not that bothered. I'm going to go off. It's like, no, I'm not going nowhere. You're not going to drop me. You might chuck me in Jimmy Anderson's, you know, bracket and the two of us together, but I want to get better. And, you know, like I said, you kept wicket to him a lot, and we've heard little snippets of what you said in the Caribbean, and I picked up on it earlier. Sometimes Broad and Anderson got labelled as selfish. And you're talking about longevity, the ability to hide the ball. It wasn't a case of hiding the ball. It was just making the batsman come to them. And their skill, for me, was, and you know better because you were keeping wicket, was the ability to strike. And I would say to any young fast bowler, Jared, you don't get a ball, you don't try and get a wicket every ball. You try and set a batsman up. And I think that's what Broad and Anderson, they've been, you know, the ball with a duke ball, so they've got a little bit more leeway and a little bit more chance to set a batsman up for a little bit of a longer period because the ball's always doing that a little bit more. But their ability to strike when it's the right time is what makes these two good. And I think because of that, I think that's why they've not gone away and they've kept wanting to get better.
Yeah, listen, Hamir, the other thing I'll add about Brody as a character is, make no mistake, he's a winner. And what I mean by that is he will get in the fight. He will He wants to win. And going back to that, what is your motivation? For these guys now to be waking up every morning, they will be in agony. I mean, Harmy, you know what it feels like, a bowler in the morning, your toes are sore, your ankles are sore, you're on that, God knows what pills. Doc, get over here, I need a massage. To keep going, keep turning up. It's got to be bigger than money. It's got to be bigger than, anything else. And ultimately, I know exactly what it is. It's playing cricket for England, and it's winning test matches for England. That is what drives Stuart Broad. I spoke to him last week, and he was genuinely hurt. It wasn't like, I'm a bit disappointed, a bit gutting. He was hurt to the core that the series that he had previously, the Ashes, South Africa, leading that attack while Jimmy was injured. Everyone talks about Anderson, and rightly so, but I think because everyone talks about Jimmy, Brody maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves. He led that attack when Jimmy wasn't there, and to come to the first test after this long period off, I think he's averaged 21 in Test cricket the last 18 months. To be left out is kind of criminal. If you had a batsman, let's say what would you say for a bowler averaging 21 in Test cricket? What's that? The equivalent of a batter averaging 55, maybe? I imagine, Harmy, you'll say more like 60 or 70.
It's batsman's game, mate. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
You had 2 goals. You could catch the thing as well.
Yeah, well, sometimes. But, let's say you've just had a batsman the last 18 months being leading run scorer in the Ashes and against South Africa, averaging 60, 65 in Test match cricket for the last 18 months, and first test comes along and he's dropped. I mean, there'd be absolute outrage. You just wouldn't. It would never happen. So, I know he was hurting, and as you said earlier, Steve, the writing was on the wall of what was going to happen. He was going to come in, and he was going to win, and he was going to help England win, and he wanted to have an impact, a definite impact on the game. Now, look, did he expect to get 10 for this match, man of the series? I mean, that's an incredible impact, and it's thoroughly well deserved. But never write him off. That is for sure.
We're talking Stuart Broad here, if you're just tuning in, and we have Matthew Pryor, the former England wicketkeeper, and specifically Stuart Broad's wicketkeeper quite a few times. Maddie, I wanted to ask you about a story that you told. I think you might have told it on air. Hopefully it wasn't in a bar late at night. About Broady in, I think it was in Durham during the 2013 Ashes. You had to have a couple of words with him. He can be quite single-minded at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he can be. He can be stubborn, and all the fantastic players are. They've got an ego about them. Of course, they have. They've got their own ideas and opinions on what they should be doing and what the team should be doing. But that particular occasion, it was Durham. In the Ashes, we were ahead of the game, and then we needed to bowl Australia out. For, I think it was roughly 300 something, maybe just under actually. And we had a very clear plan to David Warner specifically. And we just weren't executing that plan, quite frankly. And the Aussies were sort of 90 for none, I think. Buck Rogers was tucking in at the other end. But we just hadn't bowled well. And in particular, Brody hadn't executed a plan to Warner. And we came off a tee. Now, look, Stu and I are our best mates. We're great mates. But the one thing we had in that dressing room was something we referred to as brutal honesty. The only chat we had was, does it help the team win? If it helps the team win, it needs to be said. And, I went up to Brody and had that honest chat with him and said, listen, mate, what are you doing? Quite frankly, that's not the plan. We know that's not the plan. You're bowling straight into these areas. And we had a really heated discussion right there and then, which will remain in that dressing room. But, I mean, it was a good, honest tear-up about the plan and the fact that he wasn't executing it. And he told me this and told me that and told me to go whatever. But I was just watching him over tea, and he was sitting there quietly. You could see he was fuming, but you could also see he was thinking. And I know, and he will not admit it, but I know he was thinking, damn it, he's right. He is right. We've not got it right, and I've not got it right to Warner. What happened after tea? 6 for nothing. I can't remember how many wickets, but he rolled them out in an hour, and we won the Test match that evening. And, it just teaches you something about Broad is, he will fight back. Yeah, he will have an opinion. Yeah, he will be stubborn. But he's also more than willing to listen, accept accountability, accept responsibility, and accept that sometimes he may have to change and he may have to adapt. And ultimately, that's what he was able to do in the space of a 20-minute tea break. And then when he got it right, I mean, a feature, as we know, of his bowling is when he gets his knees up, he can run through teams. And to have a bowler like that with that skill, and you could feel it. I'm going on now, but I'm bringing back memories of standing behind the stumps, especially in the house, and you could literally see when he hit his straps and he was able to bowl that slightly fuller length, but keep the pace and bounce on it. And the minute he hit that, you were just waiting. You, as a wicketkeeper and a slip cordon, you were just waiting for the edges to come because you knew they would.
And Matty, the difference, I believe, the good and the great, is what comes next, and how the good get better, and they don't look behind them and they look forward. Stuart Broad, 34-year-old, what potentially number, not so much number is he looking for, but where do you think Stuart Broad sees himself in 18 months, 2 years' time? Is it without his great mate in Jimmy Anderson, or do you still believe that Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, I still think they've got a future all over the world, because I think a lot of it was down to England not scoring enough runs, but I still think they can do it. Do you think English cricket has got 2 or 3 years left, more 2 years left of Broad and Anderson, and where do you think Stuart will see himself wanting to try and get to when it comes to the wicket total? Because he's got 5. If Jimmy goes on, I look at Jimmy playing 8-10 test matches over the course of the next sort of 18 months. That'll take him to 630, 640 wickets. Do you think Stuart will be looking at 600, or do you think he'll be looking for even more?
Well, he's going to be chasing him, isn't he? I mean, no one wants to be second, and certainly Broadie's makeup and attitude, he'll be, and quite rightly, he'll be saying, well, if Jimmy can be bowling as he is now, at the age he is, then why can't I? And actually, if you do the maths, if I'm playing at the same age that Jimmy is now, then I might be just ahead of him. So I think that will potentially be in the back of his mind, but I don't think it's the main driver. I think the right now, you can tell in both of them the motivation is there, 100%. And I think they just are addicted to winning test matches and playing cricket for England and winning test matches for England. I think that's their main driver. And they influence, if they can, they want to influence winning cricket matches. That is their motivation. And I think that they've got to that number where really it's kind of irrelevant. And they'll get to a point where the number of wickets they've got is the number of wickets they've got. Mentally, they're there. The motivation is there. It will just be how long the body can hold on for. You know, Harmy, better than anyone, the rigours of fast bowling, and fingers crossed, touch wood, it doesn't happen for a long time, and they get to make a choice, both of them, of when they want to stop before their body sort of gives up on them. But look, my mentality is if they're getting the ball in the right area with enough pace on it and still with the skill and ability to execute, then why on earth would you not have them in the team? They're the 2 best bowlers England have ever had, and they should be selected on their ability to win games of England, win games of cricket, nothing else.
Oh, beauty! Oh, 300! He's joined the big club. Stuart Broad.
What a beauty. What an absolute pearler round the wicket.
All gone. What a start for Broad and England. All gone. Oh, it's Broad again. Sensational stuff. Oh, what a catch. Ben Stokes.
And gone. Stuart Broad moves on to 5 for 6.
Gone. That's another. And another. And another.
All gone. Brilliant from Broad. 8 for 15. Best bowling figures on this ground.
But Stuart Broad, take it bow, absolutely awesome.
That was Stuart Broad taking 8 for 15 against Australia. Sad to say I was actually there at that stage. But we're going to continue to celebrate his milestone of reaching 500 test wickets. You're listening to how Stuart Broad joined the all-time bowling elite, a TalkSport 2 special. So let's get more insight. We've talked to a wicketkeeper, but let's talk to a fellow bowler and a Notts teammate. Harry Gurney is joining us. Harry, how are you?
Hi, Jared. I'm really well, thanks. That was the commentary of that 8 for
15 there was giving me goosebumps. I'm sure you didn't enjoy it too much, but I did.
Yeah, goosebumps isn't the word I'd use, but I won't say what I would on air. Now, you have a really special relationship with Stuart Broad. You've known him for a long time, but you're also business partners. You've got your own pub together, don't you?
Yeah, we've got two. I'm sat in one of them as we speak, actually. It's closed. It's closed today, but I'm genuinely, at the moment, I'm digging trenches to put raised beds in one of his pubs while he's probably sat at home drinking something expensive and red, I'd have thought. But yeah, we are in business together, and we have a lot of fun with it.
And what was he like when he was coming up? I mean, we've talked about a little bit on the show how he was an all-rounder at times, but what was he like as a young kid when you first sort of came along?
Well, I mean, he was a batter originally. He's a year above me, so he first got picked for Leicestershire second team, I think, as an opening batter. He scored a double 100 for the Leicester under-17s, I think it was, and he bowled some sort of floaty medium pace. And then he went over to, I think it was Hoppers Crossing in Melbourne, and grew about 3 foot and came back bowling the speed of light. And the rest is sort of history, really. I think someone got under his skin one day in a second team, and the legend has it that he ramped it up and sort of never looked back from that day onwards.
Doesn't sound like something that would happen in Melbourne. I can't believe it did.
Harry came on the scene and sort of burst on the scene as a young, long blonde-haired locks with a white ball. But I always believed that this kid had the potential to be one of the fantastic fast bowler, because his determination and drive to get better. My first impressions of Stuart, when I first came across him, I think in late 2007, was his ability to want to get better. You grew up with him. Was that always the case with him?
Yeah, I think that's what stands him out. I think you're absolutely right, Harmy. It's that competitive spirit when he gets on the pitch, and the desire to solve problems and find a way of getting a batsman out. And test pitches these days are pretty flat, and he's an expert at just finding a way. And as you've seen throughout his career, it's sort of punctuated by these just unbelievable performances where he just rips through a team and wins a game for England. And from day one, he's always had that. It's always been his attitude. He's really grabbed his own career by the scruff of the neck. I think that's a common thing with all the great players that I've been fortunate enough to play with, all far better than me. They all have a real firm grasp of where they're going with their career, and they almost sit down with coach and say, this is what I want to do, rather than the other way around.
And, you're a bowler who has got his own sort of bowling style and has obviously gone on to be, a world-class T20 bowler. Broad's quite interesting. You talked about it a little bit as he grew up as a batsman, and he thinks about the game a little bit differently. I quite often think of him as almost like a mad scientist, the way that he sort of puts all these things together. It must be fascinating for you to be able to sit there and watch him and how he thinks about the game and chat to him about these things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, which a lot of great players have in common, real students of the game, and Broad is no different. He loves the game, he loves talking about the game, he loves passing on his knowledge to younger players, and his record in white ball cricket is not too shabby either, let's not forget. So, it's been an honour and a pleasure, really, to play with him over the years and be mates with him and now be in business with him. And, I mean, it's just I'm having to pinch myself that he's got 500 wickets, so God knows how he must feel.
And he's not going to be doing the raised beds or serving coffee or pints in the bar relatively soon, is he? Stuart Broad,
No.
that interview in Southampton, I believed he was going to Old Trafford knowing that he was going to perform. And they're not going to get rid of him anytime soon, are they?
No, I think he's made his point. To be fair, it was fairly emphatic, wasn't it, to come back and get man of the series, and good on him. That's exactly the kind of that sort of epitomises him really.
And obviously, after he got hit in the face, his batting has changed quite a bit. When Varun Aaron hit him with that bouncer, do you think that he without that sort of an incident, he was he made 160 in a Test match? There's probably he's left a little bit on the table, hasn't he, because of that one incredible thing, and it must have changed him quite a lot emotionally.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was one of those moments when he looks back on his career that was quite significant for him, and yes, maybe he could have scored more runs over the years. But I think if you offered him what he's achieved and 0 runs he'd have taken it. It's he's just ripped through teams, hasn't he, left, right, and centre. And yes, he would have loved, I'm sure, to have scored more runs. He's a batter naturally at heart, and he thinks like a batter and talks like a batter at times, as you say. But what a career he's had.
And having spent time with him at school or youth cricket, Harry, you've came through second team cricket with him, been around him on the first class scene, a little bit international scene. Now got business interests with him. Where do you think you and Stuart will be when you're late 40s or in the 50s? Where can you see Stuart Broad going next after his career? He's still got a bit to go, but when he does hang up his boots.
I could see him just slipping into Beefy's shoes and travelling the world.
What, drinking wine?
Commentary box. Drinking wine.
Harry, I've been out for a drink with Stuart. He ain't in Beefy's league. Never mind anybody else.
Yeah, he'll be in a commentary box somewhere around the world. But hopefully, the vision for the company is that we build it up and we have sites all across the Midlands and maybe beyond, and maybe flog the lot one day and play some golf. But that's the dream. That's what we're working on.
I hope you do well, pal.
Thank you. Cheers, Army.
Thanks for coming on, Harry.
Thanks, gents.
Stuart Broad has just taken his 500th Test wicket and made the breakthrough England wanted this morning. Lovely little piece of bowling to the right-handed Craig Brathwaite. The ball nipping back in, kept a bit low, hit Brathwaite on the back leg, plumb in front of middle stump. Absolutely no doubt about it as far as the umpire was concerned. Great celebrations considering there's no crowd in the ground, but Broad reaches 500. The West Indies 45 for 3.
It's obviously a pretty ridiculous achievement to get 500, and he's also chipped in with some handy runs in this Test match as well, which is nice to see. So he's bowling really well at the minute, and hopefully we keep grabbing the slips.
He knew exactly when to seize the moment, and he did it. And for me, that's why he has to play it, because he's a match winner.
Stuart Broad becomes just the 7th bowler to take over 500 Test wickets, joining an exclusive group in the process. You're listening to how Stuart Broad joined the all-time bowling elite at TalkSport 2 Special. Well, we're actually going to go to the man himself, because he was asked a very interesting question about whether he may, in fact, be the last bowler to pass 500 Test wickets.
Someone's going to have to play a lot of cricket, because, there is a lot of competition out there for cricket with different T20 franchises, 100 ball. I feel very lucky that we've played cricket for England for an era that we've played a lot of Test cricket in the summer and a lot of Test cricket in the winter. But I could even, I think there's talk about that sort of thinning the amount of Test matches we've played in the summer down. So you need a lot of Test matches to go and get 500 wickets. So I think there'll be people with the talent who would be able to get there numbers-wise, but whether they'll be able to play the amount of Test matches that the seam bowlers have to get to that feat remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think looking at that, Harmy, I think seam bowlers are the ones that I think might struggle. Nathan Lyon has taken 390 wickets for Australia. He's 32 years old. I think Ravi Ashwin might be even a little bit older than Nathan Lyon, but he's got over 300 wickets. So we've got two current spinners who take a lot of wickets and could certainly play for another 5 or 6 years if they both wanted to, who aren't T20 specialists. But as far as seam bowlers go, it's going to have to be an Australian, English or Indian player just because of the amount of tests. And there's just so many reasons for them not to play every test anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way the volume of cricket that's been played, like Stuart said there. Do you know what I wish Stuart had just said there? Was no, I don't think there's going to be anybody going to get anywhere near. I think if you had asked him that question after Southampton, I think he would have said it. But I don't think there is. Jared, there might be the odd spinner. You mentioned Lyon might get there and Ashwin, but I don't even think a seam will get anywhere near 400, 450 because of the longevity, and that's what we've talked about. And I still think there's a hell of a lot of life left in Stuart Broad. And because of that, I think him and Jimmy are the greatest that we've ever had, along with Sir Alistair Cook and in my opinion, Kevin Peterson. So in the modern day time, Ben Stokes will get there. Joe Root will probably get there. But while we're saying nice things about good people, Stuart Broad is one of the nicest humans going. And for me, he's one of the best cricketers ever to play the game for England.
And this is what he said about his future.
I've never even thought about that. I'm not a particular goal setter, so it's not like I could sit and say I really want to take 600 wickets or anything like that. I'm someone who almost sets goals on series, so I want to make sure that I'm here and peaking at that time and here and peaking at that time. So, the way Jimmy still runs in and bowls and has the skill at 30, coming up to 38 is incredible. And if you'd have asked me 4 years ago, if you'd asked me that question 4 years ago to say at 34, do you think you'd still play for another 3 or 4 years? I'd go, absolutely not. But now I am 34. I feel fit. My fitness testing post-lockdown was the best it's ever been. I feel excited. I'm really enjoying playing around this group. I've got a great relationship with Chris Silverwood, the head coach, who knows my bowling inside out, having worked with him as bowling coach. And why not try and follow in Jimmy's footsteps? He's been wonderful to play with. He's still inspiring players in this group and below. And if the environment in the England change room stays as it is, and how enjoyable it is to be around these cricketers like Ruti and Stokes and Wokes, and then you add in your Popes and Sam Currans, who are just such young, exciting prospects. It's a great place to play. It's really enjoyable. I don't feel like I'm the older sort of outcast, and I feel like Jimmy feels exactly the same. I think there'd be a lot of 34-year-olds who have retired from the game would wish they'd be in an environment that we're in at the moment, because it gives you energy, it inspires you to keep improving, and with the amount of competition there is, you've got to perform as well. Let's be honest. We've got so many fast bowlers here that if you're not taking wickets, you're probably not going to play, which keeps the standard high. So I feel very lucky that I'm in an environment I am, and if I keep bowling the way I am for the next few years, then I wouldn't rule anything out.
Just a couple of stories from me on Stuart Broad. We actually played an indoor cricket game together a couple of years ago. I think it was for a sponsor. It might have been for Investec or one of the England sponsors at the time. And Broady got me to bowl the death over of this, even though I'm a leg spinner. I think because I was taking the game so much more seriously than anyone else was. And afterwards, he said to one of my friends, that Aussie bloke, he's a bit competitive, isn't he? I thought, geez, if Stuart Broad is saying that about me, I might have an issue. But the other one goes back to Australia as well, because so much of his legacy is built up through Ashes contest. So after that, we talked about it before, the 2013 moment where he didn't walk. He actually got an edge to the wicketkeeper, hit Brad Haddin's glove, went through to slip. He didn't walk, which is hilarious that Australia got upset at it, because I was taught as a very small age never ever to walk. But suddenly Broady did it and we were very angry. So he arrives in Queensland and the Courier Mail decides to just completely attack him. They actually said they were going to have a Broad ban and they weren't going to mention him. They blacked out his face on the paper. It was incredible, the scenes that they went to harm me. And then, of course, he runs through Australia in the first test at the Gabba, where the Courier Mail is from. And he walked into the press conference with the newspaper under his arm. He is someone who is at no stage, he's always willing to say what he thinks. He's always very honest. He's always kept his heart on his sleeve. He's been such a fascinating cricketer to watch over the past decade, hasn't he?
He's always believed that he could perform, and that's the biggest thing. He's not gone. Keep going back to what I said a fortnight ago. Stuart Broad doesn't go to Manchester and hope. And I've played with many cricketers, Jared, and you've seen probably many cricketers. I wouldn't like to name names, but they would come out and say what you've said, hoping and have sleepless nights for 4 days, getting to Old Trafford, thinking, I want to perform. Stuart Broad got in his car, couldn't wait for 4 days. He probably had sleepless nights waiting, desperate to get at the West Indies, because he knew he was going to perform. And that's what makes him great. His ability to know the situation and rise to the occasion. And that's why he's one of the all-time greats. I can't say any more nicer words, higher praise for Stuart, because he goes under the radar a little bit because of Anderson. It's Broad and Anderson, and Jimmy gets a hell of a lot of limelight headlines. But in the last 2 years, this guy has carried this bowling attack. He's carried the England team's red ball cricket, and today A lot of people are saying nice things about him over the course of this Test match, and deservedly so. And I think over the course of this next week, I hope people are shouting his name from the rooftops. I hope his name's in headline of every newspaper, because 500 Test match wickets is an incredible achievement for a fast bowler. And I'm so proud and so pleased to say that. Not only did I play alongside him, I feel as though I could call him a friend. And I don't praise too many people in that regard, in that way, other than greatness. And that's what that kid is.